Alrighty. Fresh-faced again and feeling fantastic. Yeah, the difference is staggering. Absolutely staggering. Yeah, absolutely. Checked over my diary this morning and made a little video. And this is called Shadow Communism, because this is what the West has been subjected to for over 40 years. And then we've been battling a false narrative of communist versus capitalist. That's not at all the way it was, because our health system is the medical system is the central, the central planning, central hub, or has been acting as the central hub for a shadow communist Western alliance. This is why everything's revolving around it. So the vaccine was implanted through that. The virus ideology was planted through that. The controls were done through that. The mental health epidemic was done through that. The autistic, the trans thing was introduced through that. And as soon as you understand that is, as soon as you classify that as a religion, it is a religion of the state. And that is, it's not just communism. It's national fascism. It's the worst of the worst. And so the way this is turning out is from all the chaos, there is a battleground emerging, and the main focus here is to run a fucking impenetrable line between Russia and China. And if that line doesn't want to be violent, then we will not accept any violence anywhere else. That's the line. They're the two out in the open communist regimes. So this shadow communism that the West has experienced has been, persuaded by those two. So we're at war with both of you. And some people are aligning towards communist China, and some people are aligning towards communist Russia. At the moment, I'm, leaning more towards communist Russia because it's slower. Basically, communist Russia is slow, laborious, and that's what we've used in the West to attack them. It's like, oh, they're not doing anything. Look at what we're doing. And it's like, most of what we were doing was shit and really negative. And it's kind of like, this is the funniest thing about Western Australia. It's like Western Australia, our unofficial title for people that wish to kind of harass us or to mock us was wait a while. WA, wait a while. And so it's our literal geographical isolation that's caused us to wait a while and caused us closer to the Soviet strategy. And once the delusion of Western democracy, capitalism is removed, because it wasn't, you know what I mean? Oh, Western capitalist democracy, yeah, it just created the largest, medical control system that is now attempting to step right into a literal digital control system, and that's China. So the thing is, it's like communism won not because it's better. Communism just won because it handles this type of situation better. I'm still not fighting on the communist side. I'm almost in the side of the people that say, oh, communism works, it just was never done properly. It's like communism won, but we all lost. That's the real truth. So my only job now is to persuade Russia on, and they're already there. They're like, yeah, we're letting go of our communism. They've come through the full cycle. They've gone full on. They've had their fucking crash. They've been attacked. They've been mocked. They've been ridiculed. And now they just sit quietly and just mind their own business. And unfortunately, the Western, shadow communist alliance, the European Union, the American Democratic Party, the Labour Party in Australia, and the Labour Party in the United Kingdom, they came knocking on their door. And my guess is because that was, that would have been fairly easy to explain. And that's really what I see the last 5-6 years of war as. This last 6 years has been the war of Russia trying to convince us that, that we are deeply in the midst of a shadow communist regime that's been going for 40 years. And that it's, and trying to prevent that taking total control. And China has been assisting that shadow communism to take total control because so there's the war. The war is between China and Russia but I'd say China is trying to get supremacy of the world and like its foot in the door of all of our industry and manufacturing to elevate and then utilize what it thinks is its technologically superior version of communism. And Russia is basically like, there is no superior version of communism. We're just recently on the outer where we're trying to rebuild our empire, but we're not losing all of the things, but we're certainly not elevating some type of mass hysterical digital fucking medical cult like the Nazis did. And then so on and so forth. And this is where we are. And then what's happening in the Commonwealth, you know what I mean? And I'll explain that. I'll just extend it back to the fucking British Empire. This is half of Canada. It's more than half of America, but America's, gone through so much propaganda and self-identifying itself as something different, despite the fact that it's like, well, America, you were deeply communist and it spread out all over the world and you use these medical, pharmaceutical, like public relations warfare to attack us all and to try and drive us towards communism while saying that you weren't, which is really shit, really confusing. But yeah, I'll just say the British Empire. It's like pre-independent United States independent British Empire. Okay, that's where we are. Not, you could call that communism. Yeah, but it's not. It's certainly not a medical, pharmaceutical, technical, industrial fascist fucking superpower, which is what China's trying to be. It was an empire, and it was messy but clean, messy but orderly. Like it was mess, and it used, what would be considered now as very archaic, like things like uniforms and honor and discipline and duty and ranks and all the things that you can see Donald Trump trying to reestablish, and people are mocking him for it purely because it looks old-fashioned. But everything old-fashioned was better. And if you look at the battle between Russia and China, you can see China is trying to basically destroy its past because its past holds the seeds of the inevitable revolution away from communism. And Russia is restoring its past. And that's what I'm doing. So, we're not allies. We are, and I'm speaking myself and my interpretation of the British Empire and my protection of that. We are mutual, historically grounded historians and protectors of history. And we are, I would say, both extremely skeptical of this technocracy, over-medicalization, just ridiculous shadow communist regime. And it's, as long as, from the West's perspective, we can look at China and go, they're ultimate communists. And even still, some people are still celebrating them. We've got Mark Carney in Canada, celebrating his alliance with China. And basically, we've got Donald Trump somewhat celebrating his alliance with Russia. And this is good. This is a good thing. Like this, we need to turn the screws on both of these and really differentiate the differences between these two superpowers, which they are. They're superpowers. And so unlike Mark Carney saying, oh, you're the new world order, the Chinese. No, you're the Chinese communist world order. Yeah, and you've stolen, again, you are now in the position that the Americans were in 300 years ago, 400 years ago, when they stole that territory. And now Canada is in the process, and the Canadian government is in the process of attempting to steal more territory and hand it over to our fucking Chinese people that have stolen intellectual property. They've corrupted our nations. They've built the infrastructure of this unfucking holy, ungodly, fucking communist, fucking technocracy, medical fucking cult. And we're not very happy. We're not very happy as the British Empire that you're doing this. Our only job as the British Empire should be to disrupt China's fucking technical, medical, World Health Organization, delusional fucking concepts, and restore the British Empire, only to then start to, so we'll hold it for a moment. We need to hold it for a moment to ground this entire thing. And the reason it's like Greenland, it's like, one, well, it's closer to England. And actually, to be honest, it's closer to Ireland. So I'll take fucking Greenland as an Irishman. I'll take it under the Wilkinson fucking surname. I'll say, all right, I'm fucking King Wilkinson of Greenland. I've got plenty of fucking Viking blood to satisfy the fucking Danes present there, the couple of thousand. It's a big fucking ice block. And I'm going there not to fucking strip it for fucking minerals to sell to fucking China to create this fucking hellscape. I'm going to fucking create a freshwater transportation alleyway to provide fresh water to Afghanistan and Iran. Or sorry, Persia and Afghanistan. As an Irishman. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to fucking play any of these games as an Irishman. God knows there's enough Irishmen in the United States. There's enough Irishmen in Australia. There's enough Irishmen in England. There's enough Irishmen in everywhere. We're fucking all over the place. One place there aren't enough Irishmen is in Greenland. You know what I mean? When I think of green, I think of Irish. When I think of Denmark, I think of fucking, I don't know what I think of. I think of Vikings. It's like, it's time for the Kingdom of Ireland, you know what I mean, to just head north a bit. This is our time, and we'd like it to be civil. You know what I mean? We want to provide water to these places. We want to provide a fucking, escape route for the Palestinians, I guess. And we want to balance out this bullshit because we're sick of it. You know what I mean? It's turning us all to drink. And you're all discriminating against us, saying this is the Irish flu. It's like, this isn't the Irish flu. This is obviously a problem with the amount of water that Ireland has. We're going to turn that ice in Greenland into fucking water. And so we can sober up and become our own little fucking empire of sorts. You know what I mean? Yes, there is a kind of unholy, ungodly alliance with an Englishman who also lives inside my brain. But that Englishman is purely holding a line. He holds a line that goes from Hobart on that longitude of 142, I think it is, around the entire world, which only really takes up Greenland and Tasmania. And it cuts a little fucking line between Alaska and Russia. You know what I mean? And then if I can sit there in Greenland as an Irishman, then that cuts a line between the United Kingdom and the United States. We've just got to chop lines everywhere and basically say, no, you don't cross this line. Skynet, that's the Chinese Communist Party bloody digital fucking hellscape. It's like, you don't cross this line. China, if there's one people on earth that are going to respect a fucking wall, even if it's a digital wall, even if it's a significant longitudinal fucking boundary line, it's the Chinese. And in return, we'll respect their fucking wall. So China, you don't even need to build a wall anymore. Just draw a line around yourselves and we will fucking leave you alone. All right, we need to get back to a trade agreement that is trading for the positive of both instead of the negative. You know, when we're all implanting everything with fucking 7-dimensional fucking warfare, we can't do anything. And this is kind of where I think Russia's not really doing a lot of that. But the one thing Russia is attempting to do to the Western world and to China is to say communism is a terrible idea. Right? You need to securely identify your boundaries and your territory. And then you need to work for the betterment of all. And it's slow. It's not flashy and salesy. And this is where it's odd to have Donald Trump there, because the one thing he can do is sell. And so it's like he's there, he's doing it, but he's trying to sell something. And these people are making fun of him. It's like he's trying to sell, America, and then also go into like kind of austerity. And it's like, yeah, that's what he's trying to do. And as far as Denmark goes, it's like, well, Denmark, you're aligned again with these people, with these fascists. You know what I mean? It's like, and you're stuck in the middle. It's like, well, I can celebrate your Norse mythology. I'm not going to try and over-Christianize you. I'm not going to try and corrupt you with Christianity, which has been your journey away from that. And then you've landed straight back in the fire with this fucking medical world health fucking digital fucking democracy fucking socialism. And all it does is it's like everybody who gets on that train, and this is why it isn't working, this is why it's so fucking embarrassing and hilarious, is because all the people with these jobs, these safe, secure jobs, which you have to have because you have to be able to make the mortgage payments to the house, which is just insane. So no one's doing like contractual work, like a piece rate, like a 2-year contract, and then you get enough money to buy a house, which is pretty much how everyone ever did anything. It's all now, it's all a 30-year contract. And then so the only people that can really have the stability to provide a 30-year position is governments, and especially socialized governments. And this is kind of literally what's happening with Greenland right now. You're like, oh, we've sorted this out. We're fucking Greenland. We're under the Danish fucking Euro socialist model. And they're kind of like, we've committed to our fucking thing. It's like, no, you haven't. You haven't done anything. You've got 50,000 people there. This has got to be the most ridiculous like negotiation in the history of the world. And basically, I think what it is, and I would be the same, if I lived in Greenland, I would not want to become a part of the United States. And so there's an alliance. It's like you're an alliance between Tasmania, Ireland, and fucking Greenland. That's pretty cool. And they're probably going to be like, shit. The one thing worse than being part of the United States is being part of Ireland. And I'd say, stop being racist. You know what I mean? stop being discriminatory against fucking Irish people, and maybe they'll fucking, stop drinking. That worked for me. I had to insulate myself from all the discrimination, the anti-Irish sentiment. And this is really what this fascist shadow communism has done. And it's why it continuously aligns to like monolithic superpowers. So like an Islamic, empire across the world, which is held, even the Jewish fucking race, the Islamics and the Chinese, and in some part the Russians, right? So it's like they're immune to this because they don't have this patchwork of European conflict, the French and the English and the Irish, the English and the Scottish, the fucking Dutch and the English, the German and the English. Like you draw the lines of conflict running between there until you get to the areas, the more Slavic areas where it's grey. It's like the reason all of these domestic violence situations is because we have our enemies in the form of Russia, China, and this shadow communist Western alliance are just pouring fucking fuel constantly on this little region that has all these, historical skirmishes. It's just constantly. It's like, and the other things is like an Iranian or an African or a Chinese person or an Asian person or even a Russian. It's like they're so alien to us that there's no bickering. And basically what our legal system is, it's turning bickering into clan warfare and tribal warfare in order to fucking clear the land for us to be invaded or overcome by these superpowers, this Chinese, Russian, and the Shadow Western Alliance. And the Shadow Western Communist Alliance, they're just aligning with both of them. They're attempting to be the Western elite, and this is the European Union, this is the Democrat Party in the United States, and this is the Labour Party in the UK and our Labour Party here. They're just positioning and positioning themselves to be, it's like, we're going to be inheriting elite status. We are the aristocrats of this global negotiation. And I suppose that's what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it as an empire because there's no solution where we remain separated. It's like, it's China and it's Russia, right? We need to basically destroy this Western Democratic Alliance because it's all just a lie. Because it's all just a enslavement system to hold people in these 30-year mortgages so they can be traded in the financial market. And that's slavery. So anyone saying that you can't buy Greenland because they're not cattle, it's like, well, the financial elites are already buying every other region because they're cattle, because they're complying with these 30-year mortgages in these government jobs, which is just, that's basically like that's shorthand or Morse code for fucking communism. And the only one of these superpowers that has a chance of having an appropriate conversation are the Russians, because they're on the other side of their communist experiment failing. This is why it's like all we need to do is basically declare that Vladimir Putin is the Tsar of Russia, and that it's the Russian Empire. You know what I mean? And then learn. And then accept the fact it's like basically we need a billion Russians to tell the West that we are the communists. And it's like, this is the moment. So it's like, I'm not aligning with anyone. I'm aligning with my Britishness. And this communism has been, it's like we fought a Cold War against this communism. As British people, we almost completely lost it. Now the Russians are on the other side of it, and I'm saying to Vladimir Putin, I'm like, pull us out, pull us out as an empire. But it's like we will redraw the divisions so that we more appropriately, reflect you, so we equal you out. and then we will trade, and we'll trade in the kind of in the zones that have been rejected, because it's like the people that are occupying these positions of these government jobs, committing to their 30-year mortgages, which are being traded in a gambling, financial, stock market economy. All of that is all now the infrastructure of the shadow communist or shadow fascist global alliance, which is tilting more towards China, because China is trying to hold the superiority in the technology. Russia is trying to hold the superiority of just the bare bones. Russia is running an empire like they always have been. You know what I mean? Nuts and bolts, fucking on the ground stuff, like warfare. And that's why they're the easy one to draw into a hot war and then declare them as this. It's like, yeah, that's what they do. The only thing I can see that they're really trying to do with their cyber interference is to expose the fact that the West is a communist alliance from hell, or this shadow West, this shadow left of the West, and this includes, the European Union. And again, but it's not all of Europe. It's not like everyone in Germany and fucking Ukraine and Poland and fucking Ireland and Sweden and Denmark. They're not all socialists. It's just when they talk. So when Anthony Albanese talks about Australia, he's only talking about the employees of Australia. And that's not how anywhere was ever built. That's the thing. It's like that's clear. That's when they block me as a descendant of Australian citizens for over 180. It's like they're saying everything in that. They don't care about anything else. They care about who's on the train, who's on the communist train, who's got a government position or a government contract or benefiting from government subsidies or on the government welfare system, all these things, and then who's plugged into the global financial trading system based on that. So it's all nice and simple. I'll give you that. It is nice and simple, but it's a rigged casino where everyone's a slave, which is what communism always is. Yeah, oh yeah, I can see you want us to stop the disruption, but it's like, what am I to do? And how can do you want me to sit there and constantly just ignore the fact that all the degradation, because you're just all skiving, you're just all, in there doing office work and paperwork and shifting papers around, and so but basically you're a commodity. If you're on this or in this chain of financial attachments, it's like you're a compliant, person that is consistently paying. And this is all this credit rating, all these things. Like, this is the kind of religion of this shadow communism, the credit ratings, medical insurance, fucking, holiday pay, child support, maternity leave. All this is the religion. This is their god that they worship, and it's this safe and secure stability, and that's what they use. And they actually can't understand when we're like, what? Because it's like, if you aren't aspiring to something more, right, which is funny. So it's like shadow. It's like shadow communist capitalism. And the best example is a time zone arcade, where you go and you get your card, you load it up with fake money, you go and play video games that aren't real, that don't do anything, it's just getting amusement. And then at the end of the day, you might be able to, have enough tokens or points or tickets to go and buy something that is inflated to some ridiculous price. That's literally the model of this shadow communist, shadow fascist global thing. This is when Mark Carney talks about the new world order. So yeah, that's the Chinese communist world order. You can imagine China's filling the vending machine up. You know what I mean? They're keeping the power going. The fucking people are just running around. But that's a deteriorating level. It's like we're losing everything while we're being amused. It's an amusement park, the entire thing. Now, the real world, when I talk about the British Empire, it's like means I go and buy a piece of land. And I always like to get to really simple. I quarry stone from the land using the new technology, using the supply chain, which it might be from China, it might be from Russia, I might buy a generator on Temu, whatever the fuck it is. I might buy a winch from an Australian manufacturer. And then I use those technology advances, the mass distribution of that, to move my stone and build a house. I don't need a mortgage. And this is what blows the whole thing up. It exposes the trap of this international finance thing. And it's like, I'm not going to sit here and start, a reenactment of World War II and go, oh, it was all the Jews. It's everyone, including us. And in the majority of Australia, it's our elderly that have been forced into this superannuation, and they're benefiting from it. They're just short-sighted, and in a lot of ways, like grossly uneducated or unexposed to the potential of this time period. And that would be like, this should be adjudicated. If like, it should just be able to be handled in diplomacy, but it isn't. Because everything's being considered war, because everyone's like, no one understands these basics anymore, because an entire generation of boomers has been gone through this and they don't know any different. All they know is like war, then I was born, and then 30-year mortgage, mow my lawn. Go to the office and check your time card in. This wasn't the way that anything, and especially wasn't the way that Australia worked, because Australia was nothing. There was nothing here. We built the whole thing. With ingenuity, with like engineering abilities, with innovation, with technical know-how and adaptation and all these things. It's like we've got to get an independent force of just like, no, I'm not playing that. And the problem is, it's like they're now trying to declare how what I'm doing is violent and is antisocial. All these things. It's like, no, you've created a kind of like parallel pseudo government, but you've stolen all our intellectual property, and of course you have, because you're aligned with the Chinese, and that's all they do. And I think some of that is like literally lost in translation. It's like I don't think they always know. Really. And I think this is actually causing a lot of this. I think a lot of this confusion and corruption and backwards and like all this is like based on massive assumptions of things that isn't known, because I think a lot of these things are hard to culturally get across. And there is like cult-like reaction and protection of these things, which constantly happens. I get it in my comment section. They're not here today, and whether they're real or not, or whether they're just provocateurs, it's like it's sometimes hit pretty bang on with how the reaction is. If I go to a place where there's a bunch of FIFO workers and I start saying these things, they'll go to, oh, what do you want to go live in a fucking cave, you fucking underground? And that's because that's what was used against the Russians and the communists. But it's like, you're the communists. You're the fucking Soviets. Like that. And there just isn't enough education. And it's all so messy and moving around. So it's just like this constantly, all over the place. And it's why it's like, when I invoke the British Empire, I'm not trying to bring servitude to all these regions, like, because that was our history, and there was reasons and things that caused all those different interactions. But if they're mistold in the wrong way, then it skews the whole fucking perception of everything. But it's basically locality. It's like we have a little region between. And say it's like, Spain's like the outer outskirts. It's like Spain, France, Ireland, Scotland, England, Denmark, Germany, Holland, You get reach further at Poland, Romania. It's like we've got this little zone of just constant lines for back and forth of intermarriage, of like little skirmishes, full out wars, like expansionary wars, competing fucking industrial shipping empires and all this stuff, like all held there through the lens of a hard and secure financial system. And now, and actually, the only thing you could say is like when we had that East India Trading Company or the East India, like England and the Dutch East India companies. Well, that's getting pretty similar. These are people, large, non-military, non-governmental corporations that had huge sway over the world's supply. That they were the original communist things, and they were competing in what then was a very open world. And then bringing it back, centralizing it in their financial districts in Amsterdam and London, and then using that to spread back out, and also using that to kind of formulate these profit deriving or these control deriving corporate and financial kind of systems, which have just now been exposed to global interference and a lot of, I think, confusion and a lot of lost in translation. I don't think these conflicts are being had accurately, and I think that's causing a lot of problems. And that's why I'm getting, every day I go on, I'm getting less and less fearful of like some type of mass retaliation or an assassination or something, because I'm just differentiating. I'm saying like, well, you're playing a different fucking game than I am, and I'm playing the original game that we established this thing under. And I'm trying to bring you back before you fall off the board of reality. And you already have, to be honest, like, because it's like it's now like a physics equation of how ridiculous these things are. We've had so long disconnected from hard money and hard gold that it's literally like the mechanism of the financial global world is traded on and is an asset in a different, it's like added dimension to what gold was. And that is what is balancing out how disconnected most people's activities are with the physical world. And I'm doing this in order to prepare myself. But as soon as I said 100 times, as soon as I purchase land and move one block, it's like every block that I move into place shows this. It shows the comparison between like open market comparison. The fact that what I'm doing is like kind of skilled, but once I do it, it's not. Because it's like there are high level skills to do with building and things like, but it's like the majority of that isn't. So if the majority of that is now able to be innovated out of on the individual basis, and this is what basically government has already gone through this process, and that's why they've been able to provide all these socialist, things. But it's like they don't have oversight all of it, so they just outsource it, and it's in the outsourcing that the infiltration of the damaging and sabotaging concepts are. If you follow me. Basically, if I've got oversight over, small containable projects like a house, or it's like, I know, it's like, unless there's Russians and Chinese sneaking into the block as they do it and filling it with dynamite. But why would they do that? They'd only do that if it's a big enough thing, and that's the government. And that's literally what happened. So the government is automated moving blocks, which they're not actually moving any blocks. It's just blocks of finance and blocks of demographics that are plugged into the financial system. They're kind of balancing it all out with the international trade and market system. And then each block is being filled with fucking explosives and biological weapons and fucking, dangerous ideologies, like all these things. So it doesn't make any sense, and we need to make it make sense again. Now, I was going to talk about something, but I've kind of forgotten what it was. It was to do with moving blocks. No, it slipped out of my mind. That's a bugger. It was a juicy morsel. But there are really hard and fast. Oh, this is what it. Yeah. Okay, so it's to do with this, constant provocation towards our internal. Like, say I drew a map around that region, around France, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Germany, Holland. There's probably other, like Hungary, Belgium, that whole, that Eurozone. And, lasso down to Australia as well, lasso to New Zealand, obviously, and then still even kind of affecting the United States. Because most of the initial migration to the United States was from those regions, and Canada. And this incorporates Denmark and everything anyway. It's like that region has so many interactions. But basically, our judicial system, if those reactions have been scaled down, because there isn't a lot of capacity, like business is being homogenized. So a lot of the business they've been giganticized. So these industrial chains now are so large that there isn't as much opportunity at the entrepreneurial level, at the startup level, to compete, worthwhile. There are, but most of those keep aligning to government contracts as opposed to independent, capitalist growth. And that corrupts the whole thing. As soon as that is going to government contracts, it's all swallowed up by the same thing. And then the government basically then is going to inevitably resolve to a war against independent innovation, because it will perceive it as a threat. And the way they're using that is these domestic violence, which is basically provoked territorial and clan-based, tribal-based, ethnicity-based skirmishes held through the controllable lens of a domestic violence situation, but it isn't at all. And I think a lot of these are subconscious and almost unconscious, sometimes just fleeting. This is actually what, if you want to get a really good snapshot of it, if you look at our Middle Eastern immigrants and our Jewish immigrants and the thing that's going on there, that's going on between the Scottish and the English and the Irish, the fucking American, and it's even like the Northern Irish and the Irish, the fucking Protestants and the Catholic, all of that, the Germans and the English, the fucking French and the English, the Dutch and the English, the Dutch and the French, all of that is all going on, and is manifesting through what is actually really wonderful. It's manifesting through inevitable domestic, what's classed as domestic violence, but a lot of times it's literally just, it's vocal and verbal disagreements squished through the lens of the feminist uprising, which is because they want to have their skirmishes. They want to rewrite the maps of Europe through their new freedom unconsciously, and kind of this has been promoted for 100 years. So it's not always completely what's the word, intellectualized or absorbed or fully. It's these are unconscious and subconscious kind of provoked reactionary fucking things, and they're not planned, because they're just natural. And all of ours weren't either. We had lots of planning, but it's like the amount of male fucking whims. It's like the the Danes finding England and attacking. It's like that was a whim. That's what, if you watch the Viking series, it's like he's kind of like, I don't like you, I'm going to go and do this. And that's just hundreds of years in that fucking zone, just and now the women, emboldened by their freedom and these laws, are trying to do it, but that's all being held and maintained within our judicial system. And these alien, what would have been declared as alien races, that's politically incorrect now to say, because that's part of the overall strategy. When we run out of words to use that invoke the same power, but then you still call them an Irishman and it's still there. The English dog, or your fucking Protestant thing, or your Catholic fucking blah, 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 and that's all there. But if I say an alien ethnicity, like, Middle Eastern, Muslims, Islamic, Iraqi, fucking Iranian, Chinese, African, like those further removed ethnicities, that will never be held in this skirmish, in this thing. That because they're not actually that ambitious. You know what I mean? And they don't even know. So it's like I will swear on any Bible and absolute testimony on thing. And this is trying to protect this person. This is my children's mother. It's like, yeah, she's an ambitious, like, warrior queen who's trying to overthrow, in her mind, and this is what's constantly there, her English fucking misogynistic fucking overlord fucking ex-husband, and liberate her people. But she's doing it through our judicial system, which is just favoring the constant provocation of this inter-clan, inter-Celtic, European, verbal stoushes, and then the monolithic supercultures are just ploughing in, and then they're being literally defended by these concepts as like hate speech and racism, and fucking Islamophobia or Islamophobia. It's like, fuck off. This why is it an Islam? Do you know how many Islamic people there are, or Islamic people there are in the world? It's like millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions. It's like, but it's Islamophobic to say things about that, but not Islamophobic, or it's not Englishophobic for an Irish people to hold this grudge. Or Catholics hold this grudge against Protestants, or like, when you look at that map, it becomes very clear. And I will take that to any court. I will show the figures like, well, you're provoking these skirmishes. Because if there is a language barrier or a cultural barrier or an ethnic barrier that's too large, it's like, it won't manifest as this level domestic violence. Because there has to be a lot of, like, the closer you are to someone, this is like sibling rivalry. This is what our little Eurozone is having. And it's like that, you don't, that's why people kind of cringe. You're like, well, you marry your sister or you do this thing. It's like, no, there's sibling rivalry there. You don't do that. And I think women actually have an instinct to marry outside of this little inbred fucking zone, which is actually huge and really diverse. And so the masculine influence is to maintain that kind of purity, and the women are just willy-nilly fucking going out and spreading their wings. And our judiciary is not using any type of historic telling to do. It's just using these methods of like racism and hate speech and equality and fucking melting pot society. But it's like, there isn't a melting pot, and it's engineered by our enemies. It's like, we've had a melting pot for a long time, and what's happening in the dialogue and in the judicial system of most Western countries is like, that melting pot is now all melted and homogenized into one, despite the fact that it isn't. And that's going to war as it's still melting and conflict in there with a non-melting other ethnicity, like the Islamists or the Chinese or the Africans, or in some way the Russians. And it's fucking crazy. It's literally engineered. And this is why it's like I'm 4 years in to something that is a one-sided verbal verbal dialogue based, conflict down one dimension of between two parents from geographic, from ethnic backgrounds of two islands that I can swim between. And this is taking place out on some isolated fucking colony of some gigantic fucking island that has been lost to fucking history and civilization for thousands and thousands of years. And at the same time, there is a monolithic, group of people, two monolithic, Chinese and the Islamics, just settling here and playing by the same rules. And it's like, I know, it's like if I marry a Persian, there's no way and say something goes wrong, there's no way it's going to end up like this. So all of this friction, all of this chaos, all of this whatever, all of this fodder for the socialist, socialized fucking legal, judicial policing, imprisonment, fucking paperwork, lawyers, family court, all of that, politicians to constantly think, the media constantly promoting all this, all of that fodder comes between holding a mother and a father apart that lived swimming distance, their ancestors. That's fucking crazy. And that is war. And that's where I go to when I invoke the Druidic law. And I say, well, the Druids are back. And we'll do whatever the fuck we need to do to fight this invasion by this new empire. It's like we've solved our things. We've found whatever alliances with Rome, and we've worked this out over hundreds and hundreds of years. It's like we're not going to let this absolutely horrifying fucking cult in the form of Islam or in the form of the Chinese communists in the back door in this way. This is this needs to be a Druidic alliance, held also with the Greeks, pre-Roman. I think that's a handy thing to do. It's no offense to the Romans or anything like that. It's like, let's just kind of try and fucking ignore the steel age, realize that we're in the glass age, and bridge that gap. And let's go all the way from the Druids to the fucking Greeks, and the Celts, and hold that momentarily when we think about these conflicts with someone like the Ayatollah of Iran. It's like, what are you doing? What the hell are you doing? Causing this much mayhem to my people, to my, very noble fucking, historic, powerful fucking people that are spread all around the world, peacefully, and you've invaded us in this way, and it's absolutely not acceptable. And the same to the Chinese. Like China, however many centuries ago, decided to burn its ships and concentrate, and that is why China is the power that it is now. And we went the other way. You know what I mean? And it's like, if any attempt to divide us, it's like we will do the same thing. We will literally just fucking plow bulldozers through your fucking empire. We'll build a fucking 7-lane fucking superhighway from fucking Russia down to the South China Sea. And we'll just say, fucking deal with it. This is our Belt and Rail initiative so we can trade with Russia. It's like, fuck off. All of this, we cannot maintain a culture based on this socialized invasion. And because this is what it is. It's a slowed down invasion. And the invasion, like the complying with the invasion, has been socialized by our government systems and turned into their fucking their reason for being. Like, do you know what I mean? These are bureaucrat fucking administrators for our enemies that are claiming to be our government. And that's all they're doing. They're like, we need to fucking, you know what I mean? We need to turn this sign into Chinese. We'll hire the fucking person there, the sign writer there, this person there needs to be sent to jail because he shared, photos of his family. Fucking 4 police officers. Actually, it's more like 20, all on the fucking government thing. Take him to the kangaroo court. There's a couple more wages. Take him to the prison watch house. A couple more wages there. Take him to the fucking maximum security prison. Take him to the community corrections. And you're all just administrating a fucking invasion, provably. That's why it's called it. It's the fucking Chinese aircraft carrier. And it's like we'll fucking stick the fucking stamps on you. You know what I mean? Basically, like what's going to happen is like if you're really a big swinging dick in this Chinese administrative fucking invasion, it's like we're going to catch you and we're going to stick a tattoo on your fucking forehead, and you're going to be stuck with that. We have to decide what it is. It's like, what the fuck would it be? I think it's going to be a fucking, what's symbolic enough? Needs to not be confused with anything else. I'll think about that for the rest of the day. I'll be like, what tattoo can we stick on these communist fucking administrative fucking bureaucratic fucking treasonous, mutinous fucking scumbags that are turning our country into a red carpet for our enemies, and then saying that that's government and charging us to do it. And a fucking scam of the century. The problem with these things is like, don't make it too good. That's how you made it too good. It's meant to be messy and rough around the edges. It's like, there's no doubt in my fucking mind that this is what you've done. And this isn't just in Australia. This is Ireland. This is England. This is Scotland. This is fucking America. This is Canada. This is Denmark. This is Sweden. This is fucking France. Germany. Holland. Poland. Ukraine. Everywhere. Our healthy little, walking region where people walked and strolled and horse and carted and fucking, paddled on little rowboats and things like that. A little wind in the willows fucking little pond here that has expanded, but we've done pretty good at that. It's like you're invading that with communism and waiting rooms and emergency departments and fucking, flu shots. That's not very good. So instantly, I think it could be a circle on your forehead. No, that's actually too nice because a circle shows some harmony. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. A triangle, and that's same. Triangle is a really stable, beautiful engineering. I'm not going to fucking, you're far less than that. I need to, and I'm thinking a line, but even a line is good. It's like, what can I actually tattoo on your forehead that will fucking tell everyone of actually how disgusting and fucking backwards and bullshit you are? You know what I mean? How quickly can we start this avalanche, this fucking tsunami of people evacuating that and starting to turn on inward? Oh, they did this, they made me do this, they made me do it. How many people are actually going to end up with the fucking tattoo? That's what I want to know. It can't be a dot because that's confused with the Hindu thing, a beautiful kind of, culture and ethnicity. It's like, I'll have to, I've got to think. It can't, this can't be too complicated. It's got to be quick and easy. We've got to have a fucking, we've got to be able to catch you and fucking hold you in a van with a fucking blindfold on and then fucking quickly scriggle it on you before you have time to fucking do anything and then chuck you back to the streets like catch and release. You've stopped us being able to fish, which a lot of that fishing was catch and release. And now we've got to catch communists and release them with a fucking tattoo on their head. And I've got all that pressure. I've got to think about what it is. But yeah, I've got 50 seconds left, so I'll leave that for the job of the day. Tattoo for the communists. Fucking what could it be? What could it be? What could it be? It can't be the letter C because that's MI6 is lovingly declared that. What could it be? Can't be an X because that's kind of that's almost too cool. Too fucking whatever. Maybe I'd have a competition, right? If anyone wants to phone in with a suggestion of what that image will be, I'm all ears. Thank you. Have a great day.